Where were you the last time the Detroit Pistons won a playoff game? Here's a hint. Woody hadn't even reached 300 career wins yet on this show. Kawhi gets the better of the best player in the world, and the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer reached another career milestone. And Wayne Gretzky wasn't there. Our producer, Aaron Solomon, he was in the building. Not really the same thing, but you know what I mean.
He was there.
I went there. Look at this panel. Clinton, Woody, David, and Kevin. And of course, let's start with Kawhi Leonard's ball night, folks. Carried the Clippers with a vintage performance, 39 points on 15 of 19 shooting. Man, from the field. He said afterwards, quote, "I'm just happy that I'm able to move." I said that yesterday morning, end quote. Also came up with a big steal off Nikola Jokic down the stretch. The Joker did his customary triple-double, but he also had 7 turnovers. And the Clippers, they even the series. So, Woody, what's the takeaway from Kawhi's night in the series that's all even heading back to L.A.?
Kawhi was the Kawhi of old, not the old Kawhi. He was healthy. He wasn't injured. He goes out. Not only offensively did he have an incredible night, but defensively, he was the primary defender for only 5 points scored by the Nuggets. And he did steal the ball from Jokic at the very end to make the difference in the game. I think the Nuggets are in real trouble because Kawhi is emerged as the same guy that was with the Spurs as an MVP in the playoffs and with the Raptors, and we all remember the famous shot he made in that series. I think that the Nuggets going back to L.A., not going back, but going there to L.A., are, as I said, in real trouble because they can't get the same kind of performance out of Jokic that they have been doing all season long. He is being guarded so closely. They were stealing the ball away from him. He was making bad passes, and he wasn't getting the help that he normally would expect or hope he would get from the other players. When Michael Porter Jr. is continuing to have injury problems, Jamal Murray was sick last night. Aaron Gordon didn't really have the kind of game that he had in the opening night. So I think that going there, it's going to be difficult for the Nuggets to even win one game there and come back home with one loss, knocking them out of the series and out of the playoffs.
All right, Woody, before we move on, though, what about David Adelman, experienced assistant coach? How much pressure on him now with the series tied at 1-1 going into L.A., trying to get at least one win there?
In the first game, in the closing moments, he called a timeout. They didn't get off a shot. Last night, he didn't call a timeout, and I base it on the fact that he felt like they could get down the court and make a shot and tie up the game, and they weren't able to do that.
David Dennis Jr., what about Kawhi last night?
Yeah, if I'd have told you 3 months ago that we'd be looking at a 48-hour span in which Kawhi Leonard played 80 minutes of high-intense basketball, you would think I was crazy. The guy made 70% of his contested shots. And I'm with everybody else. This is a vintage Kawhi Leonard performance. I am moving past the point of thinking about how long can he sustain this, because he's been doing this ever since he came back from that injury for this last half of the season. But all is not lost for this Denver Nuggets team, and all of that falls on the shoulders of Nikola Jokic, because the guy still has not really been unleashed yet in this series. He hasn't crossed the 30-point plateau. You have to feel that at some point in LA, you are going to have one of these MVP best-in-the-world games from Jokic that could turn the tide of this series.
Kevin Blackistone, can Kawhi keep this up? 2 years ago, 2 playoff games. Last year, 2 playoff games. Here we are. He's played 2, and as David pointed out, he's been terrific. Can he keep this up?
Exactly. 6 playoff games in the last 3 seasons. 39. I mean, he was absolutely spectacular. And despite all of that, they only won by 3. So if the Joker even had an average game last night, if he had half the turnovers, if he made a couple more shots, they win this game. So I don't think that anything is lost. I think that all that happened last night was that you had a Kawhi Leonard explosion. And I certainly think that Denver can withstand that going forward.
Clinton Yates, boots on the ground in L.A. You're waiting there for the Clippers and the Nuggets to arrive. What'd you make of Kawhi's performance last night?
Well, not so fast, KB. I mean, Kawhi's performance is one thing I'll get to, but the Clippers are arguably the deepest team in the league and in the conference, and they were the hottest team in the league going into the playoffs. While it's great to get Kawhi coming back to his form, it's not that this is some Kawhi and the non-Kawhis when you're talking about who Ty Lue is leading overall. And I think that's what's most impressive about this is that they proof of concept, finally, for the Clippers after waiting all this time for something to come together is finally there. And that's what I think the biggest takeaway is for me. I knew Kawhi was in a good place when I saw him at Petco Park with his son with a Padres cap on, smiling from ear to ear a week ago. He looked like a happy man, and that is clearly translated to his ability to do things on the court. I think this Clippers team is in as good a position as we've seen them, obviously, in the last 5 seasons. It was 2021 the last time Kawhi scored this many points in a playoff.
But, meanwhile, how about the biggest moment of the game? The Michael Porter Jr. turnover, which led to the Norman Powell 3. What about the turnovers in this game, Clinton? 20 for Denver, 7 for Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, if Jokic is going to turn the ball over that many times, I'll give some props to my man Zubats as well, who I think deserves a couple votes for Defensive Player of the Year. But that missed dunk was probably the funniest thing I've seen in a really, really long time in Denver.
Woody, on the turnovers?
Yes, well, the Clippers had 20 turnovers in the first game, 20 turnovers by the Nuggets. That would seem to be more than a sampling. It's almost a trend. Both these teams have to be very aware of turning over the ball because of the offensive ability of both these teams to score off turnovers. And that didn't happen for the Nuggets last night.
All right, there were 2 great games last night. The first one, of course, to Madison Square Garden we go, and the Detroit Pistons snapped a 15-game playoff losing streak to beat the Knicks and even their series at 1 game apiece. How about Cade Cunningham? Led the way for Detroit with 33 points, 12 rebounds. But if you ask Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau, the difference in the game was a very large free throw discrepancy, 39-19 in favor of the Pistons.
Huge discrepancy in free throws, huge. And look, I really don't give a crap how they call the game as long as it's consistent on both sides. So if Cunningham's driving and there's marginal contact and he's getting to the line, then Jalen deserves to be getting to the line.
Sounds like playoff basketball. David, does Tom Thibodeau have a beef here? Was that the difference in the game?
That's just kind of disgraceful that the coach of the New York Knicks is complaining about fouls in the middle of the playoffs. Come on, you can't be doing that. They have bigger issues to be concerned with here, namely the fact that these New York Knicks have been pretty much outplayed in 7 of the 8 quarters. If it wasn't for that fourth quarter collapse in Game 1, they'd be probably down 0-2. The other big problem, Karl-Anthony Towns last night was a no-show. You want to know why you're not shooting free throws? You have a big man who is not being aggressive in that paint. 10 points last night, no points, no shots in the fourth quarter. He went the last 30 minutes of the game without scoring a single point. Do you want to talk about a big issue with your team? It starts right there with Karl-Anthony Towns.
All right, David, who do you put that on? You put that on Karl-Anthony Towns not being aggressive enough, Jalen Brunson not getting the ball, the head coach Tom Thibodeau not running plays for him. Where does the fault lie?
It's on Karl-Anthony Towns. It's the inconsistency. He had a great first game in terms of offensively and defensively, and this didn't show up in Game 2. He has to be the Game 1 Karl-Anthony Towns for the rest of the series for the Knicks to win.
All right, Kevin, let's get back to what Tom Thibodeau was talking about after the game, kind of setting the stage here. Game 3, Thursday night in Detroit. What'd you make of what Tom Thibodeau said about the free throws?
Well, you're absolutely right. He is setting the stage there, talking about that discrepancy in free throws. But look at the discrepancy that did not exist in free throws between the 2 stars of the team, Brunson and Cunningham, who went to the line, 1 difference between them, 11 and 12. So there's no problem there. The problem was, I thought that Brunson just couldn't get off this game early. And by the time he got off in the fourth quarter, they were playing catch up. And back to Cat. If I'm not mistaken, the first 3 times he touched the ball, he scored in the first quarter. And then all of a sudden, he didn't get into the game. So I put that on the coach. I put that on everybody because that's always been a complaint about Cat's game. It's like, why doesn't he dominate in the paint like he's able to do? But hats off to Cunningham and the Pistons. I thought that they rose to the occasion. He had 33 points. He looked like the spectacular player that he was always going to be coming into this league.
All right, Clinton Yates, what about what Tom Thibodeau said? And let me remind you, choose your words carefully. Go ahead.
I think what Thibodeau is doing, going on the road in a hostile environment, he's setting things up down the line for the referees to be able to help him out on the road. Here's the problem, though. Brunson, through 2 games, has drawn 23 fouls. That is as much as the rest of the team combined, all right? So this isn't just an issue of what's happening with the refs. It's particularly one player. Also, your bench got outscored 35-8 last night. Figure those things out first, and maybe it'll be a little easier on the road. But, yeah, I think he's making his point for the sake of what happens down the line, not just what happens.
All right, Woody Page, come on. We lived through Pat Riley and Phil Jackson going at it all the time through the media. How much of this is complaining? How much of this is just gamesmanship, getting the team and the league office and the referees set for Game 3?
Well, it's a lack of taking responsibility for your team not winning the game. And so you got to blame somebody. You're not going to blame yourself or your players. You're going to blame the officiating for what happened out there. And that makes no sense whatsoever. I saw a different Detroit team than I did in the first game because they look like they have arrived now, that they are in the playoffs. They belong here. And Cunningham, I don't think people really paid attention to him. He was an all-star this year, but the way he emerged last night, I thought that was incredible. That they can now match 1 versus 1, and one from Detroit beat the one from New York last night, and now they're going home where they're going to be a lot more comfortable playing in the postseason. I liked what I saw out of Detroit last night, and it had nothing to do with the referees.
David Dennis, final word before we get out of here.
I just wanted to say, Frank Isola, coincidentally, the minutes that Tom Thibodeau is doing perfect distribution of minutes, if I do say so myself.
Smart man. And Woody knows when you lose, you don't pass blame around. Unless you lose on this show, you blame the host, except when it's the fill-in host. You don't blame him. No.
Nobody's paying attention to Cade Cunningham? Carmelo Anthony is. He pointed right in his face after he hit a bucket.
Welcome back to Around the Horn, coming to you from the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17.
NFL news of the day. Our very own Peter Schrager reporting the Browns and the Giants, owners of the 2nd and the 3rd pick of Thursday's NFL Draft, are fielding calls from teams looking to trade up for said pick. Expectation is the interest could be in moving up to secure Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, or Ashton Genty. Clinton Yates, buy or sell the Browns and the Giants trading out of their slots?
I'm selling this for the Browns and the Giants, but I'm buying this for the rest of the NFL because those are the last 2 franchises that I trust in terms of getting it right on draft day and being able to move down the board to make their roster better. Don't tell me that this is a weak draft class when you've got a 2-way guy at the top who won a Heisman and a quarterback who's as accurate as I've seen in a long time. 2 of them, in my opinion, in terms of who can play the position. The Browns and the Giants are not the teams to be trusting when it comes to what you do on draft day. Period. Point blank as far as
the Giants have won Super Bowls before. Woody Page, buy or sell the Browns and the Giants trading their picks?
I'm buying it because one NFL executive told me there are only 10 players that are legitimate first-round picks this year because of the weakness, Clinton, of the draft. But I think Cleveland's going to stick with Hunter and the Giants are going to stick with Carter because they are 2 of those 10 top picks that should be kept.
David Dennis?
Yeah, I'm selling the idea that the Giants and the Browns are willing to trade down. They have the position to pick the 2 best athletes to come out of this draft. And if you're the Giants, you're not going to take trade to trade down and then maybe have some for next year. You're trying to maximize your winning right now. So I don't think you should probably stick to those 2 picks.
Kevin?
Well, if you're the Browns, you got to take Hunter. I mean, he's the best athlete. We know that. 2 different positions on the board. And if you're the Giants, you have to stay there because you have proven over the last few years, as has been alluded to by my other panelists on this show, that you do not know what you're doing when it comes to putting together a roster, particularly in the draft.
All right, everyone, fasten your seatbelts. Buy or sell to Mavs general manager Nico Harrison.
I did know that Luka was important to the fan base. I didn't quite know it to what level.
Why shouldn't you be fired?
Well, one, I think I've done a really good job here, and I don't think I can be judged by the injuries this year.
Oh, Nico he's like the piñata of the NBA. David Dennis Jr. Buy or sell Nico Harrison?
I'm selling all this. I know we got OGs and historians on the show who maybe could correct me on this, but I cannot think of a single more fireable sentence to be said in a press conference that I did not realize what Luka Doncic meant to Dallas. That is just inexplicable. And he's not the only person here. According to Tim McMahon's story, the owner himself said that he was frustrated with Nico for not letting him know how important Luka was to Dallas. If neither of these people can understand that, then neither of them should be in a position to make personnel decisions for a franchise.
Kevin, it sounds like he might have been over-prepared for this press conference, and he wasn't ready for that one question because the answer wasn't great.
Well, if he had talked to Lisa Lemaster, the brilliant PR woman in Dallas who specializes in crisis communications, before he sat down for that press conference, he certainly would not have said what he said. And he should know the value. I don't know Nico well, but I remember him when he was the Nike guy and he was around the Mavericks, and he's a nice, smart guy. He knows the value of athletic talent in the city of Dallas. That's just an unfortunate error, and it's going to cost him.
I know. When you ask someone, should you be fired, just say, well, that's not my job to decide that. My job is to build a team. I think I did a pretty good job with that. Clinton, what about Nico yesterday?
I thought the other revelation in Tim McMahon's story about how Nico's handled all of this had to go back to when Dirk's people and the trainers who had been part of the brain trust of that franchise were canned a long time ago. It was an indication of a complete misunderstanding of everything that was happening in that operation well before Luka left. And to say out loud, I had no idea, that's just honestly very embarrassing from a professional standpoint, not a personal one. If you don't know that, you are not fit to do that job for any team, never mind the one in a town and a city as big as that.
And finally, Woody Page.
Kevin, you said it was an unfortunate error. It was an unforced error. He didn't know what he was saying there, and he deserves to be fired. I can understand his position. I'm in a similar position. I might be fired pretty quickly, and I don't want to blame anybody else except me. I'm the one at fault. He's the one at fault.
Yeah. I would say at this point, no more press conferences until next October for Nico. Buy or sell 3, Timberwolves Lakers game 2, that urge and energy LA could be feeling heading into tonight after getting steamrolled by Minnesota in game 1. JJ Redick saying on Monday that their practice was, quote, the best practice we've had in months, end quote. Clinton, you'll be there tonight. Buy or sell, a bounce back from Luka, LeBron, JJ Redick, and the crew.
I'll buy it. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll win the game. But Woodrow, you said earlier that NBA coaches aren't in the business of blaming themselves or their own teams. JJ Redick did that. Yeah. He said they were disorganized. He said they weren't ready, and I will give him credit for that. The issue is, though, the second chance points were a huge issue for the Lakers in terms of what they give up. And LeBron, Raymond James cannot start a first quarter with 0 points and 0 assists. That's not going to work for the Lakers, period. They need all 3 of them. LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves to even have a chance in this game.
Woody Page?
But Clinton, he's not blaming anybody, including himself. He's saying what a great practice. I've heard thousands of coaches say, we have a great practice this week. That means nothing going into a game when you're playing in a mismatched playoff series. The Minnesota Timberwolves are underrated, I think, in this league, and they are a bad match for them because the Lakers don't play good defense, and that's what's going to keep them in trouble, not practicing.
Yeah, it's the starting pitcher who says he couldn't find the plate warming up, and yet he throws a no-hitter. David Dennis, what about the Lakers and their great practice? Does it translate into a win?
Well, it's the other quote, actually, that caught my attention. Austin Reeves said they made uncharacteristic mistakes in that game. No, those mistakes were characteristic. That defense has always been held together by a shoestring, and Minneapolis, the Minnesota Timberwolves, were able to exploit that, getting past the first man and getting wide open corner threes in which they made 75% of them in game 1. I'm not sure if the Lakers can shore up that defense enough times to win this series.
Kevin Blackistone.
Well, the only way they bounce back is to win the game. I don't care how much better they play. And do I think they can do that? I think that they can. I mean, I'm hard-pressed to believe after all of the rose petals that we've thrown at the feet of Luka and LeBron playing together that they're not going to win this game and even this thing up.
There you go. Well, Clinton, the good news is you have to get out of here to work. David, you always win, so come on. You got to take a break sometime. I love when JJ Redick said we need to be more physical. You only got called for 10 fouls in game 1. If I'm Minnesota, I'm thinking call more on them. They claim they're going to be physical. We'll see how physical this gets. Ooh. Woody and Kevin, showdown on ice in an already memorable season. Alex Ovechkin scored his first ever playoff overtime goal to lift the Caps over the Canadiens. Elsewhere, the Stars broke the Tim Kalishaw curse in their own 8-game winless streak to beat the Avs in OT. The Kings blew a 4-goal lead to the Oilers, but were bailed out by Philip Deneau with 42 seconds left to win their Game 1. And the President's Trophy winner Jets did what President Trophy's winner do. They kept winning, but the Blues 2-1 in their second game. Your biggest takeaway of the night, Kevin?
Oh, come on. It's got to be where you rock the red. That's right here in Washington, D.C., watching the Great Eight do what he has done all year long. You thought that setting the all-time record was big, and now he's starting to do this thing in the playoffs. This is exactly what they need. He set the standard at the beginning of the game. He closed it out at the end when everybody was nervous. Great deal.
Going with the homer. What about you, Woody?
Well, Kevin, everybody knows that Ovi has had so many accomplishments. I wanted to give a shout out to Colin Blackwell of the Dallas Stars, who had the playoff winner last night. He's played for 6 teams in the last 7 years, and he's the only Harvard graduate ever to score a playoff goal in overtime.
We've never had a Harvard graduate on this school. A little hard to believe. Woody,
Unbelievable.
take the point, take the win. Your FaceTime.
Today is National School Bus Driver Appreciation Day, and nobody appreciates school bus drivers more than I or any parents that are out there. I would have spent my entire school career walking 3 miles in the snow, backward, uphill, barefooted, if it hadn't been for school bus drivers. They are so underappreciated. Today, all of you appreciate what they do and what they have to go through to get your kids to and from school every day, and all the problems that they have to get past. School bus drivers, we love you.
How long was that walk? The wheels on the bus
3
go
miles.
round and round
4
as Woody
miles.
gets ever so close to 700.
Rain and
We're on a
snow.
23-and-a-half hour break. See ya.
I never rode him. I
on
used
the
to walk
bus?
to school.